Good morning, everybody. Hope you all had a good weekend. Looking forward to the week ahead. We had a look at what happened in the markets last week. We saw the Dow was down 0.2%. The Nasdaq was up 1.1%. The FTSE was up marginally at 0.2%. The Japanese Nikkei was up 2%. Shanghai pretty much flat on the week, down just 0.1%. And we had the DAX in Germany up 0.5%. So it was a fairly low trading week last week. There wasn't a huge amount of action in the markets, as you can see from those results. Some of the markets were up, some of them were down, but not a huge amount of volatility. Certainly nothing compared to what we've seen so far this year in some of the marketplaces. So if we look at the bundle of four, that was actually down 1% last week. If you recall, I've actually changed out of Apple into Amazon, and we saw Amazon down 1%, Microsoft down 0.9%, Google down just 0.2%, and Facebook was down 2% in the week. So these results don't sound great, but again, longer term, these companies are going to be ones which you must have in your portfolio, as you're going to see them continue to dominate the tech space. On the currency side of things, we saw again a little bit of a mixed bag. We saw the dollar strengthen against the euro, just under 1%, and it's now sitting at 113. We saw the sterling strengthen against the US dollar, and now we're seeing 145. Aussie dollar 138 was pretty much flat on the week, and Japanese yen, we saw a slight increase in the value of the US dollar against the Japanese yen. You're now getting 110 Japanese yen for $1 US. Just to come back onto the sterling, I know I've spoken several times about how I feel that sterling is undervalued at the moment, and if you've got any US dollars, you should be buying them. I know the Brexit talk is huge and all over the news, but just to give you an indication, one of the bookmakers, Ladbrokes, had a 90% chance of the Remain campaign winning. So usually in these circumstances, the bookmakers aren't too far off. So I would suggest that you're going to see a Remain vote for Brexit. That will probably have a short-term spike on an increase in sterling and a strengthening sterling. And in the longer term, I think ultimately you will see some gains against the dollars. So if you have some US dollars and you have some investments or some property or anything to pay for back in the UK, I suggest you convert some. So if we're looking at what's been happening elsewhere, I understand that it's a difficult place to be in the markets right now. Last week I spoke about the Federal Reserve taking a dovish approach and wanting to keep the interest rates low. This week there's talk about a rate rise happening as early as June, a hawkish approach as they call it. So I can understand why for a lot of people it's a very confusing place out there when you're hearing contrary things from one week to the next. But there are still the saviours out there. Dividends. I mean, I was chatting with a couple of clients this week, and nearly everybody agrees that companies that have history of paying dividends will enable you to get sustainable growth in your portfolios. I mean, I just picked three random ones that I knew were good dividend players out of the hat to have a look at. And they were the first three that came to mind. One was Unilever, one was Coca-Cola, and one was Johnson & Johnson. Now, if you look at the 12-month performance on those, all three of those companies paid around about a 3% dividend. So obviously 3% in its own right is in a car crash, given the current market environment and how it is quite difficult to make the gains. I mean, it's basically 2.75% better than what you're going to get on cash in the bank. But when you actually look at the performance of those three stocks over the last 12 months, you would have seen over a 7% capital growth as well. So you're talking a 10% return in 12 months. I mean, 10% is the goal. This is what every single good financial advisor should be aiming for. You can make your clients 10% a year. They're going to be happy. They're going to refer you. You're going to get future business. You're going to continue to grow. And whilst 2020 hindsight's a beautiful thing, looking at that it's there in black and white. Good quality, high yielding dividend stocks, will continue to make you money. So if we look at a comment we had, one of the comments that I found, which is a bit sad really, and it was J.D. Rockefeller, who in his day was actually worth $600 billion, which is about 10 times what Gates is worth today, and was responsible for 1% of the US's GDP. And one of his comments was, "The only thing that gives me pleasure is to see my dividends coming in." Now I hope that each and every one of you, have other things in your life, such as family or sport or whatever it may be, which give you pleasure other than dividends. But at the same time, I think we know where he's coming from. It's nice to get something back from our hard-earned cash being invested. So on the pensions, I always like to have a little mention the pensions before I leave. Example, a lot of my potential clients are aged between 35 and 45. If you start your savings plan, you want to retire at 60, and you want to have $500,000 there at the end of it, put in £500 a month at 35, you might have a chance of getting there. Leave it 10 years, that £500 is going to cost you £2,000 a month to get where you need to be. So, consider all these facts before you do it. The earlier you get involved, the better, and the more chance you've got of benefiting from compound and the various loyalty bonuses that a lot of the products that I have on offer. Very quick mention of the football. Of course, I come from a time where, winning the FA Cup by coming from a goal behind with 10 men would have been a huge cause for celebration. And what's happened to Manchester United? This has happened and the manager's been sacked. Change of times, I guess, but I guess as a United fan, getting Mourinho in is probably something that you're looking forward to. And, I certainly believe he's probably one of the few people in the world that can bring success back to United. Anyhow, that's it for today. I'm up in Hanoi. President Obama's here as well. I'll let you know if I bump into him. Have a good day. Cheers. Bye.